Hello students, welcome again. Students, today we want to critically analyze the poem The Caller written by George Herbert. We will discuss the poem line-wise, stanza-wise. We will discuss the theme of the poem, the form, structure of the poem and different poetic devices used by George Herbert. But before that, let me give you some introductory idea about George Herbert. We know that George Herbert, who was a contemporary of John Donne, who was writing poetry in the beginning of the 17th century, is one of the important metaphysical poets of the 17th century English literature. Okay, he is mainly known by his simplicity, subtle and pure use of language. Okay, all his poems are published in the Temple. Okay, published in 1633. The caller in this poem, the poet is trying to express his wish, his desire to run away, to escape from some religious bondages, duties, responsibilities which were thrust upon him. He wanted to live a life full of freedom. As you can see in this picture, George Herbert, by profession, he was working as a priest in a church. Okay, so he was bound by the religion. Okay, and somehow he was feeling suffocation working as a priest because he had so many responsibilities to do, and perhaps that is the reason why the poet is writing this poem to express his willingness to live a life of freedom. What is the meaning of the word collar? The collar means a belt which is given to a priest, which is tied around his neck. Okay, so here the word collar is actually a conceit. Metaphysical poets used conceits in their poetry. Here also, George Herbert, who is a metaphysical poet, he has used the collar as a symbol to express some bondages, restrictions and control. Now you see, this poem is written in 4 stanzas. Okay, each stanza has 9 lines, and we are going to now discuss the poem line wise or stanza wise. In the first line, the poet expresses his anger. Okay, he says, I struck the board and cried, no more, I will abroad. Okay, here the poet wants to say, I struck the board, means the poet strikes the table, okay, on which he is sitting, and he shouts out of anger that no more, I will abroad, means I am going to leave these things, leave these responsibilities. What? Shall I ever sigh and pine? Means the poet is actually asking himself that am I to sit around always feeling bad forever? पूरी जिंदगी क्या यही काम मुझे करना है? My lines and life are free. Now the poet is talking about freedom. My lines and life are free. Free as the rod. Okay. Loose as the wind. Here the poet is comparing. He has used a simile. He compares his life as a life with a free road or the free wind. He wants to live life in that manner. Okay, shall I be still in chute? Chute means a kind of a closed compartment. The poet is asking that shall I always live in this closed compartment? Actually, the poet is asking for freedom. Have I no harvest but a thorn to let me blood and not restore what I have lost with cordial fruit? One by one the poet is asking different questions to himself, and he is trying to complain to God. Okay, he says that why should I behave like a servant? I have no good fruits in my life. Okay, I have only thorns in my life which make me bleed all the time, which gives me sorrow and disappointment. Okay, the poet is saying that I have lost my all pleasures. So this is the first stanza. In the second stanza, the poet further complains, sure there was wine before my sighs did dry it. Now, in the second stanza, the poet is recalling his past good days of celebration. Okay, here the word wine, sure there was wine. Okay, the word wine actually stands for pleasure, celebration. Before my sighs did dry it. He says that it is my attempts of becoming a priest that I have forgotten those beautiful days of pleasure. There was corn before my tears did drown it. Now I am living a life of tears. Okay, and in this sea of tears, in the ocean of tears, all my pleasures are drowned. Okay, so this is how the poet is one by one, he is complaining about his poor life. Is the year only best lost to me? Have I no base to crown it? No flowers, no garlands, and gay, all blasted, all wasted. Okay, the poet here says that I have no celebrations now in my life, I have no bouquets in my life, no flowers, and no crowns to honor my brilliance. Okay, all pleasures have gone away, all pleasures have withered away. Okay, but pleasure still exists and you can go out and grab it. In the last two lines of this stanza, the poet tries to console him. Okay, and says, not so my heart, but there is fruit and thou hast hands. मतलब अभी भी कुछ बुरा नहीं हुआ है, अभी भी लेट नहीं हुआ है, अभी भी मैं इस ज़िंदगी के आनंद को अभी भी वापस प्राप्त कर सकता हूँ. सो दिस इज हाउ ही इज ट्राइंग टू कंसोल हिम. In the third stanza, he writes, recover all thy sigh-blown age, on double pleasures, leave thy cold dispute of what is fit or not. Okay, the poet says that recover your long lost pleasures. Let me recall these pleasures which I used to enjoy in past. Don't think of what is good and what is bad. Okay, you see, George Herbert, who was a priest, he always believed in morality. Okay, immoral values. So all the time he was thinking about what is good and what is not bad. Only I should follow the good values in my life. Okay, so now the poet wants to break out from these bondages, come out of the cage. This cage actually, the word here, cage. Forsake thy cage. Thy means your. Forsake means छोड़ना. ओके, आपको यहाँ से मुक्ति चाहिए, मुक्ति प्राप्त करनी चाहिए. Thy rope of sense, come out of the cage and the bondages of morality. Your own thoughts have made this fake rope. Okay, you are bound by your own rope of responsibilities, which pretty thoughts have made. Your own thoughts have made these ropes. Okay, so all in all, the poet wants to say that I wish to come out from these bondages now. In the last stanza, the poet says, call in thy death's head there, tie up thy fears, call off that alarming skull that's meant to remind me of death, lock your fears away. The poet wants to get away from that fear of death. Okay, to shoot and serve his need deserves his Lord. Those who do not do exactly what they want are given burdens and responsibilities and duties. But as I raved and grew more fierce and wild at every word, Methought I heard one calling, child, and I replied, my lord. So, in the last three lines, the poet wants to say that when I was showing more anger, okay, my dissatisfaction, when I was showing my dissatisfaction even more and more, at that time, I heard a voice calling me, and the voice said, my dear child, and I replied, yes, my lord. So the poet now listens to God as if the God is calling him that you are doing something wrong. Why do you think about coming out of these bondages? Being a priest, it is your responsibility. It is your responsibility to do this job. It is your responsibility as a priest to spread the word of the Christ, to spread the word of moral values. So, this is the central idea of this poem, the theme of this poem. It is about understanding one's responsibilities, understanding our duties. The poet wants to express the idea that we should never think about our responsibilities or duties in a negative manner. Okay, here he is presented as a priest wearing the traditional white dog collar, and he can't escape the demands of the Christian faith. Okay, feeling weighed down by his duties, he was bothered too much by his religious duty, and that's why he complains and he wants to get freedom of life. But at the end, the last three lines of the poem, okay, come with a conclusion that God can never be ignored. We should always believe in God. We should not allow our faith to be shattered by these responsibilities. So, all in all, it's such a nice poem, religious poem written by George Herbert. What about the structure of the poem, the form of the poem? I told you this poem is written in four stanzas. Each stanza has 9 lines. Total, there are 36 lines. Okay, now there is no regular rhyming pattern in these stanzas, but the last 4 lines have the rhyming scheme, that is A B A B. Okay, why there is no rhyming scheme in all throughout this poem? Because actually the poet wants to express the disorder, the chaos which is going on in his mind, and that is why there is disorder found in the structure, in the form of the poems also. Okay, at last, let me discuss different poetic devices used by George Herbert. First of all, the title, the collar, is a conceit. Conceit means a comparison. Okay, far fetched comparison is presented here. The collar here is presented as an inescapable clutch of sincere religious faith. You cannot keep away from your religious faith or duty. Simile is also found here and there in this poem. If you read these lines, my lines, my life my lines and life are free, free as the rod, loose as the wind. Here he is comparing his life with a free road and some free wind. Okay, so that is a simile. Metaphor is also found here in this line. Have I no harvest but a thorn? The word harvest here stands for happiness and thorn stands for sorrow. Okay, alliteration is also found in this poem in line number 11 and 12. The same consonant d is repeated 2 times, did dry and did drown. So consonants are repeated, that is called alliteration. So all in all, it is a nice metaphysical poem written by an important metaphysical poet, George Herbert. I hope now the poem is clear to you. If you have any doubts or questions, do write to me in the comment section of this channel. Thank you for watching. Thank you.